Hey everyone, welcome to Falcons Today. In this episode, we're diving into the next wave of NFL free agency. The first and even the second wave has come and gone, and now we're in that third phase where veteran free agents get picked up at random times. So, let's break down 5 players who make the most sense for Atlanta. Not just the best overall players available, but the ones that fit the Falcons' needs the most. I'll rank them from 5 to 1 based on my preference for the team, not necessarily their overall talent. Starting at number 5, we have future Hall of Famer Von Miller. We all remember his dominant years with the Broncos and his Super Bowl winning stint with the Rams before heading to Buffalo. However, let's be honest, Miller isn't the same force he once was. His 2023 season was rough, with limited playing time and off-the-field issues. But in 2022, he still managed 6 sacks in 13 games, showing he can contribute in the right role. If Atlanta were to sign Miller, the expectation wouldn't be for him to play a major role. Think of it like the Khalil Mack idea. Use him in obvious passing situations, let him conserve his energy, and let him go after the quarterback when it matters most. But even then, Miller is further along in his decline than Mack. So, if the Falcons could land him on a low-cost deal, maybe around $5 million, expecting 6 to 7 sacks, it wouldn't be much different from what they got out of Bud Dupree and Calais Campbell last year. Atlanta's defensive front is full of new and inexperienced faces. Bringing in a veteran like Miller, even in a reduced role, could help develop younger guys like Braylon Trice, Arnold Ebiketie, and Zach Harrison. More importantly, he could mentor whoever the Falcons draft in April. So, I'm open to the idea of signing Von Miller, but only on a cheap deal with realistic expectations. If you want the Falcons to add an edge rusher, hit that thumbs up button. Let's see if we can finally build up this pass rush after years of frustration. Now, moving on to number 4, we're sticking with Buffalo but shifting to the offensive side of the ball. Let's talk about wide receiver Amari Cooper. Now let's talk about Amari Cooper. I'm not bringing him up because the Falcons desperately need another top receiver. They already have Drake London, Darnell Mooney, and Ray McCloud. But when you look beyond those guys, the depth is thin. That's where Cooper could be valuable. As a veteran with years of experience, Cooper could be a great safety net for Michael Penix Jr. as he steps into his first full season as a starter. If injuries hit, having a reliable target like Cooper would help ease the pressure on the young quarterback. He's a smart route runner, knows how to find soft spots in zone coverage, and can be that go-to guy in critical moments. That being said, expectations need to be realistic. Much like Von Miller, Cooper isn't the player he used to be. Just 2 years ago, he became the first receiver in Browns history to post back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. But last year was a different story. Between his time in Cleveland and Buffalo, he played 14 games and managed less than 600 yards, fewer than 50 catches, and under 5 touchdowns. Add in 12 drops, a concerning sign for someone known for his hands, and it's clear that age is catching up to him. If Atlanta signs Cooper, it should be on a short, low-cost deal, maybe a 1-year, $4 million contract. You get what you pay for, and the expectation would be that he provides veteran leadership and steps up when needed. If an injury happens, the Falcons don't want Penix Jr. looking around in panic, wondering who he's throwing to. Instead, he can see Cooper out there and know he has a trusted, experienced target who can still deliver in short stretches. Before we move on to the top 3 remaining free agents for the Falcons, make sure to subscribe. If Atlanta signs any of these guys, you know we'll have a breakdown for you. Plus, the NFL draft is just about a month away, so you won't want to miss any coverage. Now, let's talk about number 3, Matt Judon. Could the Falcons bring him back after a disappointing stint in Atlanta? A few months ago, that seemed like a long shot, but as free agency has dragged on, the possibility has started to feel more realistic. Nothing has happened yet, but with Judon still available, maybe both sides come back to the table. At first, Judon may have been hoping for a $10 million plus deal, but with the first waves of free agency behind us, that market hasn't materialized. Could the Falcons offer him something in the $4 to $5 million range instead? Given the way he played at the end of last season, 10 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks in the final month, Atlanta might feel it's worth the gamble. especially now that their struggling defensive coordinator is gone and Raheem Morris, along with Jeff Ulbrich, is in charge. They might believe they can get more out of Judon, but will a reunion actually happen? I still wouldn't bet on it. If Judon's price continues to drop and the Falcons are still searching for pass rush help, I could see them convincing themselves to bring him back. He's not as expensive as he hoped to be in March. He played well down the stretch last season, and now there's a new defensive coordinator in place. Plus, Atlanta gave up a third-round pick to acquire him. From a front office standpoint, re-signing him and getting solid production could help justify that trade. That said, was it a great move looking back? Probably not. But I don't fault Terry Fontenot for taking a chance on it. So, what do you think? Should the Falcons re-sign Judon? Let me know. Drop a yes or no. Personally, I still lean toward no, but if the price keeps dropping and there aren't better options, why not? At that point, what do you really have to lose? Now moving on to number 2, Za'Darius Smith. And yeah, that was a rough voice crack. This is what happens when you have a late-night cigar before catching a red-eye flight. Smith is a player I've been talking about more and more over the past 2 weeks. He's bounced around the NFC North, playing for the Packers, Vikings, and most recently the Lions, but he's still been productive. In 2023 with the Browns, he racked up 5.5 sacks, but his pressure rate was one of the best in the league. Then, in 2024, he split the season between Cleveland and Detroit, finishing with 9 sacks, 9 tackles for loss, and 17 quarterback hits. Now, if you're looking at those numbers and thinking, yeah, but he's declining, let me remind you. 2 years ago, Calais Campbell, who was much older, and Bud Dupree, who's about Smith's age, led the Falcons in sacks with just 6.5. Smith may not be a double-digit sack guy anymore, but you're not paying him to be one. If Atlanta signs him for a 1-year, $8 million deal and he gives them 8 sacks, that would be the most by a Falcons player in a single season since Vic Beasley. That's a no-brainer. Would you love to land a younger, dominant pass rusher in free agency? Of course. But looking at the options available, that's just not realistic. Smith has been consistent when healthy, and if Atlanta can get him for the right price, I'm all in. Now let's talk about the number 1 target, Asante Samuel Jr. You knew this was coming. The former second-round pick out of Florida State has been on the Falcons' radar for months as one of the best possible free agent signings. Now, I have to admit, Atlanta re-signing Mike Hughes does lower the chances of them bringing in another defensive back. But here's the thing, Samuel is still on the open market. If his asking price starts to drop, the Falcons might reconsider. At first, they probably passed because they expected him to land a $20 million per year deal, and they preferred to give Hughes a 1-year, $9.6 million contract instead. But if Samuel's price falls to a more reasonable number, he becomes a real option again. When healthy, Samuel has been a difference maker. Sure, he missed most of last year with a shoulder injury, but in the 2 seasons prior, he played every game and racked up 4 interceptions, giving him 6 total in his career. If Atlanta can get him at the right price, he'd be a fantastic addition to their secondary. Looking at Samuel's availability over 4 seasons, he's had 2 years where he played all 17 games, 1 season where he played about 2/3 of the games, and another where he barely played at all. Which one is the outlier? I'd bet on him returning to being a full-season player rather than someone who only manages 4 games. Now, there's always a chance that he's still unsigned because of lingering concerns over his shoulder injury. Maybe some teams are hesitant due to medical evaluations. But as long as he's still on the market, I have to be interested. We saw last season that some of Atlanta's defensive backs struggled to transition from the team's previous man-heavy scheme to the zone-heavy system under Raheem Morris. The Falcons were among the league leaders in zone usage in 2024, and they still need a new nickel corner to replace D. Alford. Right now, Clark Phillips is penciled in for that role, but Samuel, who primarily played outside for the Chargers, could be an option as well. His size suggests he could handle playing inside. He's got good agility, solid movement, and at just under 6 feet and 180 pounds, he isn't too tall or lanky for the position. It's worth experimenting. And if it doesn't work, no big deal. Having too many good corners is a problem I'd love to have. A 1-year, $9 million deal might not be what Samuel initially expected, and it may not be what he wants. But at this point, it could be the best offer he gets. It gives him a solid payday, a chance to prove himself, and an opportunity to cash in next year, hopefully after a healthy, productive season in Atlanta. Before we wrap up, a couple of quick things. First, let me know in the comments which of these 5 free agents you'd like to see the Falcons sign. I ranked them already, so my pick would be Asante Samuel. I think that move would make the biggest impact. Amari Cooper wasn't really on my radar, and I'm still not sold, but I do see the logic in giving Michael Penix Jr. a veteran depth piece, just in case injuries strike. That's the kind of signing you look back on and appreciate when you need it most. Lastly, I appreciate everyone for tuning in. I'll admit, I'm not running at 100% today. A 1:20 a.m. Spirit Airlines flight out of Vegas after a bachelor party, combined with working on a Sunday, was not my smartest scheduling decision. But I'll be back tomorrow, fully recharged and ready to go.